I'm Alfonso Torres-Aranda. I go to College of Charleston. I don't know how to say that. I'm a freshman. So what I know about emancipation and slavery, from elementary school, I knew about the Civil War, but I didn't know the amounts or the effects of slavery. But I think I knew more than most elementary kids, just because I went to a predominantly black school, and they did focus a lot on like teaching them teaching us that was wrong, and that was something that happened in South Carolina, but not to great detail. Middle school, I don't think it was really touched upon. I think I learned mostly about it doesn't matter. High school is where I started learning more about it, more in depth, because I took USAP history, and my history teacher taught us that emancipation didn't free any of the slaves in the South, because the South wasn't part of the United States. So that really didn't help.
My name is Destiny Hester. I'm a freshman at the College of Charleston, and what I know about emancipation is that it's the act of being free. Slaves seeked emancipation, and that was something that they couldn't successfully get at the time they were slaves, but as time passed, they came up.
You might ask, what's so important about emancipation? Well, before the first year of the Civil War, the presidential election of 1860 was taking place. Although people did not want to admit it, the Civil War that was fought between 1861 through 1865 was fought on the basis of whether or not slavery would continue to prosper in our nation. Abraham Lincoln was the obvious victor of this election, and in 1864 gave his famous speech. Many people believe that the Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves everywhere in the nation, but that was indeed false. The Emancipation Proclamation only freed the slaves in the North because the South wasn't considered a part of the United States. They were the Confederate States of America. So in 1865, after the Civil War ended, one extremely important amendment passed that led into the Reconstruction era.
Hello, my name is Justice Collins, and I'm a freshman at the college. My knowledge about the Reconstruction period, all I really know is that it came after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were made or released, and that things didn't really change. Like, those amendments weren't really implemented for a few years. But as far as the actual specifics of the Reconstruction period, I am not sure.
What about the Reconstruction, you ask? Well, the Reconstruction era lasted from 1865 until 1877. Three very important amendments were passed during this time. The 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves, the 14th Amendment, which granted free slave citizenship, and the 15th Amendment, which granted black men the right to vote. These three amendments were very important, but they also made everything worse as well for many freed slaves. As a result of these amendments, the Freedmen's Bureau was created to help the newly freed slaves. Now that they were free, blacks were offered 40 acres and a mule to start off their new lives. This was completely strategic because these freed slaves resorted back to another form of slavery because they could not find jobs. This process was called sharecropping and basically allowed whites to use blacks for work such as planting crops without associating them as their property. It would be impossible for the students to imagine what it would be like to live during this time period, so what I decided to do during my teaching presentation is to allow my students to imagine themselves as a certain party or group during the Reconstruction era and decipher what their actions would be or what their reaction would be to a certain issue that would be faced against them.
Ask you guys, imagine yourself if you were like a poor white man, and usually white men in society are like seen as very high on this stuff, and you see all these black men or black women around you getting jobs and being elected into office and all this stuff. So what would you think would be going through your mindset if you saw this stuff back in that time period?
They'd be like, well, why am I not getting hired? It's because they're taking everything away from us.
Anyone else? Well, basically that's similar. So a lot.
Like Destiny's answers stated, basically the poorer whites were a little confused as to why they weren't getting jobs and being revoked their rights to vote and everything that they were used to having. So in response to this, in order to feel equal to others, they formed the group the Ku Klux Klan, which in these prior times, they would only harass Black people and put them in submission to whites to make them feel inferior towards them. But as time moved on, especially today, you see that the Ku Klux Klan is a bit more violent than usual and using their acts to harm others.